Marcus. At least I can see. Miss something. We got a few minutes. People join. Just going through the commit history. I see notable changes. Capture. We have James.
Hey everyone.
Nice hat.
Thank you. You too. Wow. Parrot.
Very nice, James. I like it too.
Thank you, Rob.
Mark. And Matt, you take care of the recording. I guess we're already recording.
Yep. I'll do notes and we start recording.
And notes. I try to create a wiki page ahead of time. Hopefully that helps. There you go. Still code here in Raleigh. Yeah, it was 21, at least for me, it's code.
Then you need one of those.
Yeah, my snowman melt, so I took his hat. Okay, I think we may have a lot to cover. Vincent will do intros, notable changes. Vincent's going to talk about the work he's doing with the tooling to be able to cut releases. And Dave will have Cube. And if there's time, we can cover something about the status of the repos through Ekron and Travis from that. I don't know if Gorkin will be able to join. I pinged him, he's traveling, but I merged the Java local in the DevTools. I give it a try and it was pretty cool for doing Java actions and development. Be able to test them locally. If not, we can get started. So let's get started. Introductions, anyone new to these meetings that want to introduce yourself? Mark, Vadim or Jesse, have you guys introduced yourself before?
Sure. I introduced myself like a couple of months, maybe half a year ago.
Cool.
Same here. I'm an infrequent visitor.
All right.
And for me, I'm not sure if I've introduced myself before or not, so I could just do that. So name's Jesus Alva, I go by Jesse most of the time. Work at IBM, and I'm currently working on the CLI. So both the Open CLI and our custom version for our IBM deployment.
Cool.
The long history in automation, tooling, and a lot of that type of tools.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yep.
We can mention the API gateway path parameters when we get to that. So I think that's for intros. The notable changes, I try to go through the some of the Git repos and capture some of the changes. Let's see if I have it in front of me. But one thing that we did was Roderick helped documented the Go actions. James have done some blog posts, even on Rust, that you can compile code and upload an executable. It just needs to be named exec and be in a zip file, and you can use the Docker skeleton. So I heard or saw in Twitter, I don't know, that some other vendor released Go support. So we went up and created the documentation for that. But if anyone wants to help with the docs, put in more examples for other languages, compiled languages. I even found a repo. Someone contacted me through Twitter that COBOL is a thing. So he did COBOL. So it was kind of funny. So yeah, check it out. Roderick did a blog post in Medium explaining how that works and how Docker actions work, and you can do that. And also even anything a shell script. So that's I'm looking into another's of Bash, Perl, something that is executable. You can run in a Docker skeleton. So I did some PRs to add Perl and add JQ to the Docker skeleton image. So that should be coming soon. And also there were changes about the max payload using the argument. So using standard input would allow Docker actions to consume the 1 meg that we say or more. So that's it for that. The other change was we enabled the new views. So if you have a deployment, it'll be good to, if you can update the cloud and views to the latest. That helps in terms of operations, in terms of user experience for people using the API. I'm very happy to see that now you can do a count. So you don't have to do all entities, actions, triggers. Now you can do a query parameter count equals true, and you get how many actions you have in your namespace, or how many triggers, how many activations, and a bug was fixed around limit. So a user contacted me saying that limit equals -1 wasn't working for them to go over triggers and rules. So we fixed that, and now limit needs to be from 0 to 100. That's the default values that we use, and you can use skip to paginate. So that was, I think, something that was notable and improves. We changed to Alpine, so we merged Alpine. So now the controller invoker are based on Alpine. I don't know if it's related to the views or not, but now if you get an activation record for an action, you will see new annotations. One is wait time, and another one is init time. And an init time might not be there if it's a warm invoke. So it would not be present. And then wait time is hitting the controller until your action, the Docker for the action runs. So that's good data to have. And I think the guys doing the composer and the shell are taking advantage of that information now in the activation records. What else? CLI, that's for core before moving to CLI, just a few. Log reduction, I think log reduction and logging was something that got merged, which is very good. And also dynamic, be able to dynamically enable logging for certain users that are whitelisted. So those PRs, Vadim and I think Martin did those contributions. So if you want to debug certain things in your deployment for a certain user, a test user, you can pass an extra header. It's whitelisted for a certain namespace, and then that would enable the logs to have more information. But by default, we're quiet. We don't want to have that many logs in. So we went from 40-something log lines to 12. I don't know, but they may say have a recollection for a one path of an invocation. I think that's what I saw in the repo in the last 2 weeks, which is a lot, I think. Any comments? Did I miss something, Marcus?
Nope, sounds good.
Yeah, that's mostly in the core that got merged in the last 2 weeks. For the CLI, we have some folks, some new contributors working around PowerPC. So if you see them around, help them. They're learning all the repos that we have and where things are. So John is John and another person, but John did have done a lot of work with Gradle on the CLI to have the architecture of 390X and PowerPC, so you have the binary for that, and clean up with the help of James, change to using Gradle for building instead of a Makefile. It's the same thing to use for running the test. It's the same thing for running the build, and so that was a good cleanup that happens there. And James also changed or updated the repos to do Go formatting. So all the code looks same to Go language guys, PowerPC. And then Jesse mentioned that he was working on the CLI. He merged half of the PR, one PR. There's another PR open. You can check it out in the CLI. It's the ability for the API gateway to use path parameters. So if you use API gateway integration today, you can do like slash and a hard-coded string. So that's the routing that it has. But the API gateway has support for path parameters, so you can do the typical user ID, and then you extract the ID or different pieces in that path that can become variables. But you need to tell Nginx about it, so it can do the Swagger mapping and the Swagger configuration, and then map that route to the path parameters. So to build that Swagger, Jesse's working on the CLI to add that, so you can pass a path that has your braces as path parameters, and that will go into the Swagger, and then API gateway will be able to do path parameters, and then inside your web action, you will actually see the path, where today it's like not there, and you get sad because it's not there and you want the path. So the path will become a thing. So that's coming soon. Maybe we can show a demo on the next interlock. I think that's it for notable changes. Anyone else has questions or anything notable? Okay, let's move on to the first presentation for today. Is Vincent. Vincent has been hacking on a repo we created. I think it's called OpenWhisk releases or release, so we can have some markdown files and some scripting for helping cutting the releases and creating the source archives. Vincent, you have something to present?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I think for convenience, I just share my whole desktop. Okay.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. So I just switch. Okay. Let's start from the new repo called OpenWhisk release. And here we have added quite a bunch of updates regarding the documents. And if you like to directly go to the general spec we have been drafting, it's located over here. We can come from the master page, the major page, the main page, and the home page. And here is where the general spec located. So today my presentation is based on these kind of bulletins we have listed regarding the implementations. So, okay, you guys can feel free to access this page, and I'll just open my keynotes. All right. So here is my proposal. Actually, it's drafted by my team. What we're going to talk about the implementation of the release management for our project. Let's start from what we have now. And currently, the only thing we have is all the resources or the source code hosted in GitHub. That's the state we have. And our ultimate goal is to have source code package and compiled package online available under Apache directory based on the release requirements. Literally, we can call it. We are starting from, let's say, scratch. So that's the reason that we created a kind of nice OpenWhisk release repo to manage all the processes. And in my opinion, we at least to automate all the processes as much as possible. So I propose two kind of modes we need to have. First is to have a local management mode, in which release manager can run everything locally by running kind of command from the terminal. The other mode is automating mode. We want to offload those kind of work to a automated guy, for example, Travis CI. Yeah, we should make it work. So there's kind of two kind of working mode I propose. Yeah, either you run locally, play with those kind of script to be developed, or we can let the Travis CI to kick off a job to do all the job, to do all the tasks for us. I have identified 8 major steps. We can also call them epics in order to make all the things happen. And all the 8 steps will happen, let's say, chronologically. We cannot swap their orders. First, we need to have the source code, which we can download from the GitHub. And then we need, second, we'll verify the compliance based on the Apache requirements, like checking the header, for example. After that, the third step, we need to deploy the OpenWhisk and the client tools and the other building services to make sure everything is up and running. Otherwise, we cannot release. And the fourth step, we definitely need to run the test case to verify the functionalities of each OpenWhisk core services, or any kind of client tool, runtime, API gateway, etc. And as a fifth step, we need to have some notice files or license file or change log files generated based on Apache's needs. So those kind of files will be packaged into zip file as well. And the sixth is you can use some existing tools, or we develop some tools to package the artifacts, including source code and the binaries and the compile package. And the seventh is about after we package everything we have and we upload them to account staging repositories. The purpose for this step is to let the community have something to vote on. Because before each release, we need to send out the notes, ask for the votes, ask the folks to vote on the candidates. So this is where we put our candidates. From 1 to 7, those steps can be, let's say, reiterated or intercepted at any stages before we announce the final release. We may receive any comments or maybe do some change to the kind of package. So all the 7 steps can be repeated or reiterated. And the final step is after we announce the release. And it will actually move those kind of artifacts from the staging repository to the Apache directory. Done. That's all the 8 major steps we have identified. And if you check those repo, you can see I open, let's say, 8 issues according to those epics. Let's say, it is 8 major epics. So that we have open sub-issues and crossing other issues. So the first one, let's start one by one. The first one, I think, is pretty straightforward. We need to name what kind of project we're going to release, what kind of hash values or tags we would like to pick from the GitHub, and where it will be downloaded. So based on those 3 inputs, we should be able to download all the source code to either locally or it's remotely in the Travis shop. So our implementation could be developing a kind of script called download source code to do kind of the job. And we can put the configurations in, for example, a JSON format configuration files to define the project names, and hash values or tags for them. Here you can find detailed information based on the issue 16. I open for this release repo. And second, okay, after we have the source code, we need to verify each source code is compliant by containing kind of Apache license headers. I think we have this step down somewhere already in actually by OpenWhisk utilities, and we also find some interesting tools like Apache Red, which is do kind of equivalent jobs. So we can do it like either ways. They are both the options for us, and we just at this stage we can develop another script called verify to make sure every source code has the correct header based on the Apache's needs. Okay, so this is actually go to issue 17. I opened for this release repo. Okay, third step about deployment. We have to make sure that the source code we're about to release is able to be up and running without difficulty, without, let's say, with bugs as few as possible. This is not only the deployment of OpenWhisk core. It also includes some client tools, for example, CLI and deployment. Our built-in services, for example, Apache. For example, all the available runtimes, API gateways, catalog, etc. So we need to have let's say separate script for each of them, so they can run in parallel. If we run them at the same time as a valid Travis job, so we need to have separate script for each guy. So we are able to deploy them and make sure that, or build and deploy them. So this will go to issue 18 of this repo. The fourth step, this one, I believe is not mandatory to package and release in Apache, but as release manager, we need to know that all the tasks are able to pass before we pick up a valid hash for a certain release. So this step should be necessary for us to verify all the functionalities are complete. We have OpenWhisk core, and we have CLI, we have API gateway, have different runtimes. So each repo may have separate test cases under each repo. So this test step should also be run in parallels. So we need to also have separate script for different services or components. So I open the issue as 19 for this step. Okay, step 5. So we're almost close to package them. But before we package other artifacts, we need to make sure we have a valid notice. We have a valid license files and some change logs. There could be more. This is all I can think of at this moment, but there definitely could be more. We can add it later. If files are with static content for different releases, they actually always remain the same. For example, I don't think Apache 2.0 will change their header very frequently. So for the license or the notice, it could be something like static. So we can definitely put them into our existing repos for each project. So each time we pack it, we just make sure those two files are there. For files with dynamic content, like changelog will vary from release to release. This probably we have to edit manually or find ways to generate them. So this will definitely be part of our implementation. We can either manually edit them or use some tools to help us to generate them. And after we make sure those are ready, so we are able to package them. So let's go to the next package. I believe this step is definitely essential, very essential. in order to package, here we define the artifact. Artifacts actually includes both a source code package, I mean at least both source code package and compiled package in order to release. I know that we have already had very powerful tools like Gradles to do all the build works. So this definitely will be a good help to this step. I see that we can use some other plugins like Maven or Maven release plugins for the Gradle to do this part of job. One challenge we see is that OpenWhisk consists of projects written in different languages. So we have to make sure the Gradle build or the Maven build will build differently for different languages. If we're trying to build those kind of artifacts for different OpenWhisk repos. So definitely a challenge we need to tackle in this step. And after that, we have to make sure we can package the artifacts in the correct way. And this is going to be, as I said, essential and important step for our release processes. And I open the issue 20 in the release repo for this step. Next one, 7. After we package everything, we need to find out where to upload them as a staging process, as a staging. And yeah, we can decide later where which what kind of repo we're going to select as a staging repo. I hope that it could be kind of we can have a smooth process. I mean, right after 6, because if we use like Gradle or Maven to build those guys, we hope that the Gradle and the Maven can help us to upload to a kind of staging repository without any hassle, and also list those candidate tools over here. And this step will go to the issue 21. Okay, as I said, from 1 to 7, we can reiterate at any time because we can get any comments from the community saying that wherever we need to fix before we announce the official release. The very next and the last step is to release those kind of artifacts. In a nutshell, and just move the artifacts available in the staging repo and onto the Apache release directories in order to release. We believe that after this one is just one kind of migration, to transfer all the artifacts from one place to the other place remotely. And we open the issue of 22 to tackle this one. Okay, I think after we done those kind of 8 steps, that's major steps, we should be able to reach the stage of a feature release for OpenWhisk. And I think this presentation is based on the draft you can find online here, as at least in the repo of release. And yeah, as I said, these are the 8 major epics we have identified. I think if folks agree on this kind of plan, we can just start to work on it. And I believe that any kind of comments and issues or concerns are welcome. So feel free to open your issues and add your comments based on those kind of 8 epics or any kind of other issues we opened for the release repos. Okay, so that's all I want to present today regarding the release management of our project. So we welcome any kind of comments from the community and from all your folks.
Thank you, Vincent. That's very, very good breakdown of the different steps. I'll make some comments in the issues, but at high level, looks correct. Just a few things are to note is that when we do the release in ASF, Apache Foundation, we only vote on a source, not compile or package. That's a convenience thing, or orthogonal, not a concern. The other thing is staging, and Apache already has a staging in place. It's the same.
Okay, good.
You already put the source TGZ into at the Apache location for dev, and we can call it the RC1, RC2, RC3, and then we vote on it on that source, making sure that it has the right license and is packaged correctly, and it has the right PGP key, and then it's basically an SVN move to move it to the release folder.
Oh, nice.
And then in terms of that archive that has the source code that we want to vote, and that's the only thing that we vote, and that's the only thing that
okay.
we need to vote, is we need to sign it with a PGP. So we may need to look into some integration with Jenkins. Other projects have done it, where Jenkins would sign that TGC with the PGP key, which is safe in the credentials of Jenkins. So Travis may be doing a lot of work, but putting the signing it for Apache needs to have a PGP key that we trust, either yours or mine, some PMC member committer. So we can validate that this TGC was signed by the correct PGP key, and that's another step that we do. And I agree.
Okay, thank you, Carlos.
I like the idea of quality, that these things pass some certain CI/CD pipeline to make sure that is something that we release is stable, right? It does. So I like the fact that we are compiling, building, testing that source code that is the candidate. So that's a big item that maybe other open source projects in Apache don't do, but I like that we have it, since our thing is very complex. So I think that's it. I'll put some more comments into the issues. So I'll let anyone else have comments around that. But this is very good. This is why it needs to have some tooling and automation. Any questions?
Yeah, I had some comments. I think this looks great from a technical perspective. It looks like everything is covered pretty well. My question was kind of thinking about, when you do releases in Apache, how do we decide what's in the release, and thinking about like planning the upcoming releases? Because at the moment, obviously, I'm thinking from the external developer's point of view, if you're following the project, we don't have a way for people to follow, what releases are coming up, what features are going to be in. So do you think that will be incorporated into the release process, so we can start to have more external plans of what's coming up and things like that?
So in terms of externalizing, we should take advantage of our website and create a blog post. So so everything needs to happen in the mailing list. So that's where we discuss what's in, what's out, what is the content, what is not the content. We say that this feature will have next release. It will include X, and it's just a train that comes in. What external users of the project can join the mailing list and be in the know and put a comment saying, I would like to see this fixed. And we can tell them, I would like you to submit a PR.
I think it's also should be noted that we don't have a release schedule per se, and we don't have like a planning system to plan what goes in the release. We don't really do it that way. Anybody can actually ask for a release to be published at any time on the email list, and we can vote to commence with a release. If we want to work towards a release schedule, I think that's another discussion.
Yeah. This is not a product. Let's say that this is not a product that we have a plan that next month we'll have X and next month 2 months we'll have Y. So this is not a product, this is an open source project. So the easier we make releasing something faster and stable, the better, right? So every week we just release something. We can have that rule and we just release. And if you have a bug fix, if it's already merged and it passes all the testing, then it will be out. So that's the planning that is, I think is very difficult to attain. And that's where conversations in the mailing list talk about like coordinating changes or breaking APIs and things like that. That's where we need to articulate out into the community through a blog post saying, this is a new release that came out this week. This is the content, and then these are the things to be aware. It's something breaking or something new to people to be aware. But yeah, the mailing list is where we discuss.
Hi, Carlos. Sorry. I just have a question. This is Vadim speaking. So to my understanding, so each release has to process a step of voting, right? So all the members of or there is like kind of a certain selection of people who have to vote for this release.
Yeah. So once we have a source candidate in the mailing list, we vote in the mailing list, and then anyone can vote a +1 or -1, and then match term like vetting. Like if you're a PMC, or in our case where we are PPMC, then if we have more than 3 and more +1s than -1 of vetting PPMC, then we feel confident moving to the next step. Since we are incubating, we cannot release by ourselves. Then it goes to the Apache incubator mailing list, and they have to vote, and they are the ones that we need the +1, at least 3 +1s, and then it can be released. That's why we are in training wheels. That's why it means being incubating.
Okay, I see. For me, it looks like a kind of additional step of like a manual work, and I'm just thinking about like a kind of fully automation pipeline which will be producing releases, which would make more sense. Say that like we have like different platforms where OpenWhisk will be deployed. Like we deploy with Ansible, we could deploy on Kubernetes, on Mesos, and so on. So we kind of have a pipeline. We go through all the steps. And if all the steps are green, and so we can, like in my ideal world, have like a release candidate, and then make a new release fully automatically. But it seems that we cannot avoid that manual step, right?
No, that's why we're in the foundation. We need to do the voting and follow the process.
Okay.
So that's why we have to make, and that's. We can continue in the mailing list, but I'm going to keep repeating myself. It's very different to have a TGC source file that we vote on, that it takes 72 hours to do like all this voting in the mailing list, and then another 72 hours voting in the incubator list for this TGZ. That's totally different from if you want to have or orthogonal to these Docker images, binaries, nightly bills for development to move to testings, right? Every hour, that's totally different. We're not voting on binaries. We're voting on this TGZ.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about creating convenience binaries going forward, and I think no one's opposed to that. I think that 72-hour window is for everybody to go back and take that source code, confirm they can build it and deploy it on their local systems, their staging, their servers.
If you want to make that a gate of voting when you're voting, but you don't have to test, because I'm happy that Vincent has an automated thing that I can check like, yeah, it's stable enough. And if
you can skip that. It's an option in steps.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to automate as much as possible, even maybe during the vote email to the email list and all those things. Don't get us wrong. We want to test as many platforms as possible, but we just want to get the thing working. Yeah. If people want to improve the steps, that's why they're tracking issues. Make suggestions in the tracking issues, and we can open up sub issues. And if you want to volunteer to do work or automate some part of it, please feel free.
Yeah. Because it's a pain if we do it manually. Yeah. Good. Let's continue. Because we have enough time. Let's take Dave here. So thank you, Vincent. And like I said, this is I think this is why mailing list is there. Let's discuss in the mailing list. These good discussions.
All right. All right, good. So you should be seeing this PowerPoint now. So Carlos asked me to just spend a few minutes talking about the OpenWhisk on Kubernetes part of the project. And one of the high-level messages we want to get out to people, to the community, to people interact with the broader community, is that OpenWhisk and Kubernetes is for real. And so there's a lot of activity around serverless stuff in Kubernetes, and we want OpenWhisk to be part of that conversation. So as you talk to people, try to reinforce that. And try to help you. I mean, the current status of the project, the OpenWhisk Deploy Kube project, it's fairly well documented, and at least I believe it is, and it works out of the box on both Minikube and on the IBM Cloud Container Service, both the free and pay-as-you-go clusters. And we're very happy to get pull requests to put in documentation for other cloud providers. So I want to just get that out, that it's there, it's working. We want people to be trying it and socializing that. The default deployment that comes out if you just take and follow the instructions in the master branch are equivalent to the Ansible local environments. It sets you up with something with no HA, but just basically all the basic components there and working on Minikube or on your cluster. In terms of just what's going on in the project, couple new things. So in the last week, we got a Kubernetes Container Factory provider pull request from Jim, Brennan, and Ben at Red Hat. That's a big step forward. I've been playing with that. It looks great. I'm doing some work on defining some Kubernetes jobs to do load testing. That's on a branch. I'll be submitting that sometime soon. And I'm also playing around with an OpenWhisk proxy agent, which I'm going to describe in a little bit more. Carlos suggested I spend a couple minutes just talking about Kubernetes concepts, because maybe not everyone knows those and is familiar with them. So if you know Kubernetes, this will be a snooze for you. But just spend a couple minutes just on some of the terminology, right? So there are a bunch of different terms that Kubernetes use for common concepts. So this is a picture of the basic building blocks. The innermost thing in there is an app. That's your application, has one or more running containers, and you don't really manage those yourself in Kubernetes. In Kubernetes, you put several containers, related containers together into a pod, and that's your basic building block. That's the smallest deployable, schedulable unit on Kubernetes. Pods you usually manage with deployments. And this is the thing about, these are a declarative model. This is how Kubernetes lets you describe the desired state of your system, and it can observe the current state, and it's responsible for trying to bring those together. So there's deployments. Deployments get run on worker nodes, which are the nodes of the clusters. And there's a service concept, which is basically a level of indirection between the pods, which come and go, and the sort of a stable name that you use when you talk to the various components about them. All right, and so this is just showing, you had a deployment with a single pod in it. You change the replication of that deployment to be 3. All of a sudden, Kubernetes goes off and creates 3 pods. To people who are talking to the service, there's no change. They talk to the service. That's a load balancer that then spreads across your pods and keeps track of where those pods are running. And so the pods can come and go. And you have a stable service name to talk to them. At a very abstract level, you get these pictures. So here's your Kubernetes cluster. You're running a bunch of services on it. They talk to each other through these proxies, which are the service IPs, and that does load balancing across the various pods that are actually containing the containers that contain the code that you actually care about. Okay. So there's tons of documentation about Kubernetes online, but maybe that helps a little bit. And it maybe helps a little swing back to the thing I'm currently working on, which is I'm looking to extend the Kubernetes container provider from the Red Hat pull request to support suspend and resume operations. And what I'm playing around with to do that is, so this is showing there's an invoker on the left there. It's got, here's my invoker. It's a container running inside of a pod. It's running somewhere in the cluster. Here's a pod, which is a user action. And when I'm playing around with it, I actually have 2 containers in there. One that's a little OpenWhisk agent, which I'm prototyping in Go, and then the actual user action code. And the role of the OpenWhisk agent is to talk to the Docker container daemon on the node to actually do the pause and unpause operation. So the invoker sends a suspend resume to its agent, which then does a pause, unpause to the containerd, which pauses the user action. And so we can have this pod that has 2 containers in it, one of which is paused and one of which is still active. And that's what I'm currently working on now. In the longer term, we could think about pushing some of the logging action off to that OpenWhisk agent as well. So we can have a very tight piece of Go code that's running right next to the user action to do these kind of operations. So anyway, so back at the high level, the message to get out to people is that, there's a lot of activity around OpenWhisk and Kubernetes, and you see a lot of development work going on. So questions or comments?
I had a question about integration with some of the Kubernetes services. So I know very little about Kubernetes, but when I hear other FAS projects talking about running on Kubernetes and the advantages, they seem to talk about how they have deep integration with Kubernetes services for stuff. Do you know if we do that? Is that something that we might do? Is that yeah, I'd just be interested to hear if we have those kind of benefits as well to talk about.
Right. So that's something that I've done a little prototyping of, and you can definitely, if you're running a Kubernetes cluster on which you've deployed OpenWhisk, you could be running other stuff on that cluster as well as a provider, or as someone managing the cluster, and then you can sort of think about having functions interact with services and other things running the Kubernetes cluster fairly closely. But that's not, yeah, it would be something, I think it's something that we don't really do too much with yet, but we should be looking to do as we move more onto Kubernetes or more into Mesos or other platforms, how to integrate with the native services better. And I think the other thing that the serverless on Kubernetes things tend to do is they tend to think of the functions as Kubernetes services as well, and we aren't doing that. I think there's some performance reasons why we might not want to do that, but that's also something interesting to explore.
So, Dave, we did Dan Levine and I did a briefing on where OpenWhisk on Kubernetes was back in September for the Kubernetes community SIG, I think. Mm-hmm. Probably a good idea to reach out to them again too, see if you can get like a 5-minute slot in their upcoming meetings to talk about the update. Okay.
Yeah. Can you just like hit me offline on Slack or something with who to talk to about that?
Sure.
Or email or whatever the right way is.
Yep.
Yeah, would be good, like a follow-up, right?
Okay.
Well, thanks, Dave. This is good. Start playing with Minikube and such, and I know Red Hat is doing some of that. So I think we are running out of time, Matt. So we'll leave that item for the next time. And how about we start picking up who's going to be the moderator for the next one? Any volunteers?
I can moderate it. This is Vadim.
Vadim?
Yeah. Or you want to someone else, not from IBM?
No, that's okay. Matt, you still there?
I'm still here. Yeah.
Okay.
So Vadim, if you can reach out to me if you need any help. Just basically, I'll do all the clerical stuff. I'll be here, and
sure.
get an agenda put together a couple days before and look on the mailing list and let everyone know to come.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. So any closing thoughts? If not, I'll let you guys go. My ring bell.
Thanks, Carlos.
Bye.
Thank you.